What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Age of Quarantine. I'm David Castillo from Saint Vitus Bar. Welcome. How you doing? Hope you guys are having a nice Monday, another pandemic Monday, another time to have a delicious beer. I'm having a little Three Floyds gumball, and I'm speaking with Jason Clackley today. Mr. Clackley is an excellent bass player in an excellent band called Decay. And he is also a part of the Vera project, talent buyer, just like myself. And I'm really excited to get to talk to him. Saw Dream Decay play in New York City, I believe at Silent Barn once, and it was super sick. And excited to hear more about the Vera project, and it's their 20th anniversary. Like, it's Saint Vitus' 10th anniversary, so weird times for that kind of stuff to be happening. But let's see what we got going on here. Here we go. We're connecting, drinking. Hello, Tichile.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. I'm actually going to throw these in real fast. Let's see if these help me out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, Mr. Clackley, hello. Welcome to the Age of Quarantine. Super sweet to be having you. This was brought up to me by our friend Bailey, and I was like, you know what? We could definitely chop it up. Me and this dude. I think we have a very similar, somewhat journey in music, kind of on two different sides of the country, right?
Totally.
So let's get into it. Basically, on the show, we kind of just go through people's journeys in music, and we kind of start at the top, childhood and stuff like that. So to me, I know you from sort of Seattle, that kind of area. Were you born and raised out there?
Yeah, I grew up in Seattle for most of my middle school, high school life, but I'm originally from Hawaii myself. So yeah, so my mom's side of the family's been living in Hawaii. They're Portuguese. There's like a long immigration history of Portuguese people being in Hawaii. So my mom's from there, my grandfather's from there, my great grandmother, the whole nine yards. And so my mom just kind of wanted to change of pace. And she was a single mom, so she was like, it's really expensive. In the 90s, Bremerton, the whole Seattle area was super cheap still, like, most cities. So we moved up here, and just ever since, I just got kind of indoctrinated into punk, and stayed in Seattle.
Got it.
Yeah.
So basically, your formative years were in Hawaii, and then you moved kind of middle school era, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the earliest times that you were starting to get into music. Like, when did you find out that you were like even a musical person, you think, or just that you were attracted to music as something that was going to be, eventually be a big part of your life?
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's always kind of been there. I just, as long as I can remember, it used to be that I would get like everybody. I was born in '85, so got my crisscross tapes, had my so, and then
that Clackley was rocking some backwards jeans, dog. You know that. I feel that about you.
Yeah, I was just doing that, and then MTV came around. My brother's about 4.5 years older than me, so we watched Kennedy all the time and Pauly Shore in springtime and summer, and really got into grunge and everything. And then I had other friends in the neighborhood. I grew up in this neighborhood in Pearl City. We lived in these quadplexes, and one of my friends from back then, his name was Johnny Johnson. No shit.
Hey, Johnny Johnson from the old neighborhood.
And his dad was he was a young dad, so he had a crazy CD collection of like pretty much everything that you wanted to get into when you were a kid. You know what I mean? It was like every Smashing Pumpkins record, every Nirvana record, it was like I was really into Weezer, about the Weezer tape when I was a kid, because I was like, and Blood Sugar Sex Magic, crap that,
Ah,
your entry into this stuff, and it's like
very just 90s rock radio at that time. It's,
pretty much.
I'm 2 years older than you are.
Yeah.
And that was just like, yeah, you flipped it on and what you could listen to. I mean, it really spanned a wide gamut. And honestly, kind of like you, so my family is Colombian,
Okay.
and my parents, it was mostly Spanish sung music and then
Yeah,
like
yeah.
80s pop radio in my mom's salon. That's like what I
Okay.
listened to.
Okay.
But I had an older brother, and my best friend Josh, his parents were like younger parents, but they were more like on the hippie vibe. So the first rock I really heard was like Led Zeppelin and
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix
Totally.
and stuff like that. But that did not exist really in my household all that much. It was these
Cumbia.
American folks over here.
Yeah.
I'm listening to salsa and cumbia and stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff is kind of what was being played. So you
Yeah.
kind of we're kind of in the same zone, and it's interesting how a neighbor, somebody else, they can influence just who you've really become, right? Like
Totally.
a random thing, somebody from the neighborhood. So tell me about getting, you're getting all that stuff. And, at this point, right, you're like becoming your own person, right? We
Right.
kind of forget, like, okay, now I have my taste, and I think, Red Hot Chili Peppers is better than Green Day. I'm like, fuck you,
Yeah.
whatever. But that's just like the beginning, right? When did you start kind of taking a journey into a little bit more underground music from that point?
Well, okay, so this is the journey. It was weird because it's like I was into alternative stuff in the 90s. And then like most classic kids, you get into like you're saying, like Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and stuff. But I always wanted more when I was in seventh grade. Everybody listened to E6 and whatever crap was on the radio, but like, but then I started listening to heavy rock kind of stuff, just like a lot of like, just like, I was just like, okay, well, like all this shit is cool, but I'm already bored of it. I'm bored of Deep Purple. I'm bored of Led Zeppelin. I'm bored of this. So I started kind of just diving into that first, like Blue Cheer and all those kind of weirdo, like Pentagram and stuff, and just like starting to look. And then I got into like a folk area where I was like, oh, Elliott Smith's self-titled record, that Kill Rock Stars record, really did it for me. And I was just always moving around. But the big part about like really underground music was when I was 16, and everybody was talking about emo, like in a real way, right? They were like emotional hardcore, blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, this is this. And, everybody's having the stupid debate between, well, Braid is emo. And it's like, no, Neil Perry's emo or something, right? And it's like, and I remember turning on Rites of Spring End on End for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is the shit. It was like that kind of like Almost Famous moment, when he puts on the like copy of Tommy or whatever, and it's like changes your
the whole perspective, the whole game is different.
That first
right?
snap in, I was like, oh fuck, classic rock.
and also let's just kind of qualify that too for our listeners, right? So Spring was Guy Picciotto from Fugazi, sort of emo band, whatever that sort of means nowadays. But it was really the first wave of that sort of stuff. Them 400 Years, things of that nature.
Totally.
And that really set the template for a lot of stuff. But I think what you were saying is like there were these great debates. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Like what it really is, because you listen to something like Rites of Spring and then you listen to something like Newfound Glory.
Right.
They're two vastly different things. And
totally.
That's happened in like every music genre really, right? Like what's hardcore, and then like you could have that whole debate. But this is sort of raging at a time where a lot of that music was being taken kind of mainstream as well. So it was like, where are you on that spectrum really kind of mattered, right? And
totally.
In this weird way. So Rites of Spring being sort of foundational kind of turning point for you.
Yeah.
What were some more contemporary bands that you were kind of getting into alongside that stuff? Was there stuff that you were like, man, I really want to participate in this now? Who can I like connect with in that way, I guess?
Well, there was a lot of stuff, right? Because I was like because by that point I thought KSID was the sickest thrash record of all time, which I still think KSID is pretty sick, pretty tribal, but
super
sick. But so shout out Max Cav, kind of, but I don't know what his politics are these days. I don't want to know. But but you know, like I was really into like Majority Rule and Page 99 and like City of Caterpillar. I saw City of Caterpillar in a basement in Bremerton, in like when I was a kid, and I was like, you know, you're seeing City of Caterpillar in this little basement and just thinking there's such a huge band when they're coming from Virginia. You know, just like, whoa, this band is coming to our town and playing a crappy, like, little, like, punk house that we have, you know? And it's like, those kind of things were big, you know, for me growing up, was
Yeah.
that emotional hardcore. But then on the other side, I like New York hardcore. I liked all that kind of stuff. I like, you know, the like like, you know, like heavy, you know, so I started
Yeah.
listening to like Buried Alive and then Terror and all that stuff too, the new hardcore stuff, you know. So I just kept opening my mind, you know. I'm a musician, so I love everything across the board, you know. So
Yeah, and I think that that's pretty cool. I was definitely, growing up on Long Island, I was definitely somebody who crossed over into a lot of scenes, and you'd see me pop up, and like I'd go see Bane one weekend at Madball,
yeah.
and then I would go, see sometimes walking, sometimes running, and like Joshua Fit for Battle,
Oh, Joshua
and then
Finger. Yeah.
and then I would go see On the Might of Princes
Uh-huh.
and like Boy Sets Fire. Like I
Uh-huh.
was going to whatever shows I can get my hands on
Totally
and
same.
just kind of trying to figure out my aesthetics, my taste and stuff. And actually, Chris, who will co-host the show, is the drummer in On the Might of Princes. So shout out to Chris,
Okay,
because
okay.
that shit, emotional hardcore for me, that was
Yeah.
very big, being from Long Island. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was really interesting in that time. There were a lot of different shows and kind of scenes that didn't quite cross over, but
Yeah.
they were very adjacent musically. And a lot of different people had different feelings about it, but
Yeah.
I think that it was really formative. So I think me and you were like the oddball kid who made me pop up at a lot of these different shows, because
Totally.
I'm just fucking interested, right?
Right. You
Like,
just want to be a part of something. You just want to be a part of the scene, you know? And it's like, that's really important. I feel like, I don't know if this is for you too, if you feel this way, but sounds like you had a pretty tight knit, like background of like your family being pretty tight knit with family stuff. And like, that was the same for me in Hawaii, you know? So then finding my community again was through punk and hardcore, you know? And it's like, and
mm,
having something that's bigger than me, you know? So,
yeah. I felt like I just found out about a big secret, like, because the internet wasn't really developed when
totally.
it kind of developed in parallel, like as we know, like
Master.
when I was in college,
Uh-huh.
it was like, that's when it really, like, Facebook launched, when I was like in college, right?
Totally.
And so kind of how we know it now, it was very dial up. It didn't really tell you all that much except for like chat rooms and shit, right?
Yeah.
So I had to go to like Da Vinci tattoo window and look and see all the show posters on the tattoo window and be like, oh my God, Sound
That's cool.
Majority and Vision of Disorder are playing, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
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 But that's kind of like how you found out. It was like, oh shit, it was the chase of it was really, really fun. So when you started seeing all these bands, right? Like, I always ask people this question because it turns me on to new music, but
Yeah.
what were like area bands of your youth that you really like? Like, I just mentioned Silent Majority,
Yeah.
which for Long Island hardcore, if you're from the tri-state area
Yeah.
and you were into that shit,
Yeah.
you knew who they were and they were fucking sick. But anywhere outside of the tri-state area, not quite as much.
Yeah.
What were a couple bands that you were like, oh my God, I love this, but like only people from my area would kind of know?
You know, earlier it was a lot of bands that were kind of like kind of trying to do the Blood Brothers thing first. And then because obviously the Blood Brothers was around when I was a kid and they were sick. But I mean, you know, I could say like Murder City and Murder City Devils and Botch and stuff, but I think for me, like that really got me going in the hardcore scene stuff was like, you know, like bands that maybe people haven't heard too much about were on like Dude Records and stuff like that, like Owen Hart. I think they had to change their name. You know what I mean? Like great grind band. It was just like it felt like Pantera meets Pig Destroyer. You know what I mean? Kind of like it felt like that. And then like, you know, otherwise just like, you know, like bands I guess you just don't remember, but were really special to you. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, but I think Owen Hart was one of the bands, you know, we played shows with Barricade and stuff like that. Like those kind of bands that were like from the area. I'm trying to think of any other bands that like really toured out at that time because it was so
But that's
small
a good
then,
one
you know?
though. Owen Hart is something that I barely heard of, like where I'm from, but
Yeah,
you'd hear that they're doing great out there, and people like love them, and they're like kind of a hometown thing.
right.
So let's talk about playing, right?
Yeah,
Because you play bass, right,
yeah,
in Dream Decay,
yeah.
and so how did just playing evolve for you? So now we're a fan, right? We're a
Mm-hmm.
fan. We're in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting down with underground. We're down with the underground. We're seeing City of Caterpillar and Page 99, some really sick bands, and you're like, probably, how do you want to get involved? Was playing the first way that you wanted to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, I've been my other group is this I've been in a lot of groups that I sing and play guitar in and stuff like that. And it's two opposite ends of the spectrum. This other group is like a power poppy kind of band. So I kind of
With the is that Jason Clackley and the Exquisites?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Mike Parks put
Sounds
out the
like it.
last ones. Yeah, exactly. It was like, yeah, Mike Parks put out the last few records. Shout out to Mike Park. Go buy some stuff from Asia Man Records. And but you know, I just always wanted to play. Even when I was a kid, I would record stuff on my recorder and sing to it. And like, I just knew I wanted a guitar. I always knew I wanted a guitar. And at first, it was just some crappy acoustic guitar, and I tried to make it distorted, and it sounded like crap. Like I was really working for that instrument. And I played guitar first and then bass. Bass was more, to be honest, I got better at bass, I think, just playing in as an accompanying person in bands. Like bass wasn't my first instrument, but I always found myself back on bass. Like in jazz band, I had this teacher that was like, oh, guitar is not a jazz instrument, so you have to play bass. So then I started playing bass for that in middle school. And then with bass for Dream Decay, it was just Justin was doing a lot of recording stuff with this like demo that no one can find anymore on a random Tumblr. And then and I was just like accompanying that, and then that would become Dream Decay eventually. Like I would just be like, screw it, I'll just play bass for this, and then
Mm.
which is cool because I feel like Justin and I know each other now really well as a rhythm section because so many years of like growing into it. Justin was always a great drummer. I mean that Justin's always just like since we were kids. We've been friends since we were like 17, but it's like I grew into bass through Dream Decay, and then like getting really into just like my thing is, and a lot of the stuff I play is like more like groove oriented because I like love things like War and like Sly and the Family Stone and all that stuff. So I was just like, and then we're talking cumbia. I love all that Roots of Chicha stuff, all the psychedelic cumbia stuff, and like things
Yeah.
like that. And that's where bass started to make sense to me. I wanted to be like boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to slide it into some fucking post punk
Uh,
band.
yeah, and I think that actually makes, to me, total fucking sense.
Yeah.
And I love that. So you started with guitar, and then bass sort of came through Dream Decay. But before that, what were, obviously Dream Decay is a great group. It's got about like 3 records and a single
Hmm.
that have come out, and love it, seen it
Thank you.
live, listened to it, super cool. But what predated that? Like you were playing guitar and singing a lot, you were saying. So what kind of gave you some of your more formative experiences as far as like writing and playing?
Yeah, I mean, I started playing in a classic sixth grade, seventh grade band where we played Eve Six and Blink 182 covers with a bunch. I like hung out with a bunch of soccer preps until like the end of seventh grade because they were the only people playing. So I was never necessarily married to the jock thing, but they were the only people with instruments, so I played with them. And
Hey man, I'm wearing a New York Mets shirt,
there you
and
go.
it's opening day, so like
So
we're still here. It's fine.
exactly, and I am a huge basketball fan, so soft jocks for life.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I guess the formative, and then in eighth grade, I like lost all those friends. I was like, fuck it, these people don't want to play music like the way I want to play music, and
Hmm.
so I just really got into singer songwriter stuff. I really like you start getting depressed as a kid. I started listening to Nick Drake and stuff like that. I was a sort of a depressed kid because the reason we moved from Hawaii is my father passed when I was 10. So a lot of that formidable years is because I was dealing with a lot of like weird stuff, PTSD and whatever else, because, it was a traumatic scenario. So, music was the way for me to like build, and build whatever I was passionate about and really like kind of get it out,
And
and
that's cool that like it almost shows in your tastes reflecting you. Now going back, just think about what you just said. Elliott Smith, Rites of Spring,
right.
very cathartic, very like emotional and
Yeah.
immediate music. Where like the lyric of that music is, it's not like you're listening to Gore Grind and you're just like Red
Right.
Skull. Like this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like,
yeah.
this is like, hey, like we're communicating these sort of like really, they're very intimate artists, I
Totally.
think.
Totally. And my dad was from Alabama, so he listened to country music and then also soul music,
Mm.
a lot of soul music and stuff. So we had a lot of Sam Cooke in the house and stuff like that, things like that growing up. We had one CD player in the house, everything else was a tape player. So, I mean, I was just, my parents weren't musical at all or anything, but everybody just loved music. They like having it on, and they like, and then the whole Hawaiian thing, which is like that reggae Hawaiian thing, has always existed in Hawaii, where it's like everybody's got a Steer It Up cover, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted, and those were the formidable things for me. I guess if that answers that question. So,
No, no, it definitely does, though, because through that and trying to emulate that and get those things out, that's how you start your journey, singer-songwriter, playing guitar, figuring those things out, right? Because
totally.
it's very rare that on this show, now through my interviews and just watching, Chris's and Caroline's and Artie's and stuff, that everyone's like really been playing the same shit forever.
Right,
It's
right,
so
right,
rare,
right.
and they start different instruments, different things, and it's really
Totally.
interesting to see the influence of that and how it kind of plays out.
Yeah.
So you go through that stuff, and when does Dream Decay start to come into focus, into existence? Because right now we're kind of like exiting the high school years a little bit,
Right,
like we've
right.
gone through some of that stuff, and now it's like, okay, we're in college, baby, we got taste.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Well, so Justin and I played in separate bands, and we toured on that, at least West Coast. We were, doing that thing. And then Um, I had this band called Valley of the Dinosaurs. Please, no one ever look it up. And we were like, like everybody at the time, want to be at the drive-in, kind of like Braid, like with like what else did I like? I liked, obviously City Caterpillar, so I wanted long build-ups, and it was a really all over the place kind of band. But we got somewhere where I think we started to figure out what our sound was going to be. But Justin eventually joined that band towards the end. He was like, we needed a drummer for this last little EP that we did, and he joined, and after that, I feel like we all just kind of like took a moment, like we were doing stuff. There's a moment where Justin played in this cool grind band called Poseidon. We were cool. No one would know about it. And
Good name.
yeah, it was a cool name. It sounded like Mind Eraser. We were all just in the Mind Eraser and shit. So
Shout out to Radigan.
yeah, exactly. I was like, and obviously, shout out to Jensen always. We love Iron Lung. So the hometown heroes. But yeah, and then Justin started working on this stuff, and then we were all living together at a house, and we started just kind of working on stuff together. And Justin had this demo that he put out, and after that, we just started kind of slowly but surely moving over to that stuff. He's like, oh, well, I think I want to do this EP now, and do you want to play on this? And by the second record after Fern, which the second record, that's where like Justin and I we started kind of just like writing more intentionally together, because it was a recording project for Justin at first, and then it became a collaboration, after kind of the first formidable years of it. But I was just happy to play because we had such a fun time, and when you're like 19 and stuff, you just want to go on tour, you just want to like have fun, meet people, play shows.
Yeah, and
I
have the experience, right? Like the
totally.
experience of being in a band and traveling and playing music
Hmm.
just even being able to do that and figuring that out. That's its own big learning curve, right? Like,
Totally.
okay, now I know how to at least make some music and make a racket that I think sounds pretty good to me and
Totally.
my friends, and I'm like down with it. but the next thing is like, oh, I want to get out of my fucking zone
Hmm.
and see what other people do and stuff like that. So was Dream Decay really like the first group that you started to tour with a bunch more and sort of see how that worked and feel that with?
It was kind of similar around the same time as the Exquisite, so both were doing it. I toured a little bit with these other groups I was in. We did this digital hardcore thing when I was like 18 called the Flex. I know it's there's a whole other band that's popular called the Flex, but we were like a hip hoppy kind of like, it sounded like Atari Teenage Riot, if anybody's familiar. So
Dude, I love that shit. Dude, Alec
yeah,
Empire, that's my guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy stuff. So I was touring since I was 18. You know, there were just West Coast tours at the time, but we started really stretching out, you know, when I was like in my early 20s, where I was just like, fuck it, I gotta go somewhere else. I can't just keep playing California and Oregon and Nevada and whatever. But and that's when we started kind of just like being intentional about playing shows more and like, you know, putting out records and being like, you know, a band. And yeah, we've been through so many members, but cross our fingers, this crew is good. They've been with us for a long time, the two guitar players. Alex is the longest member besides myself. One, of course, Justin. Alex, he makes science amps if you've seen him around. Yeah, so that's his company. So we've all kind of got our little niche, you know. I book shows, you know, you know,
Sure,
he
yeah.
builds,
It's
yeah,
interesting what you have to do to kind of sustain that lifestyle as you get
totally,
older, right? And
totally,
like how you organize these different things is key and important. So let's talk about the aesthetic of Dream Decay for a little bit
yeah,
because right now you're like, okay, it was this recording project and we've gone through a bunch of people, but over time, obviously to me, it's super organic feeling. It has that at times I'm almost like, wow, this sounds sort of like frenetically Bauhausy at times,
yeah,
but then there's this kraut psyche side to it that kind of comes in and there's a lot of melody too, which I
yeah,
love. Like it's not quite, all kind of like angles and little build
uh-huh,
ups and stuff.
uh-huh,
It has this sort of really interesting sort of Venn diagram of influence. But when you see it and you feel it, you're like,
yeah,
I don't think about this stuff. I had to think about it to make it sort of, it's much bigger than the sum of its parts,
yeah,
which to me is something difficult to do, right? And
yeah,
so playing together and creating that sound, like you said, it wasn't like, hey, we're starting this band, guys, and like let's all get
right,
together and we're going to attempt to do something like this.
right,
It feels like what you were saying, it just sort of came out of this and started sliding into it.
yeah.
Can you tell, once you had that more intentional period, like you were saying, how did the sound sort of develop to the Dream Decay that we are more familiar with now over the past single and record?
Yeah, so that was Alex and Justin and I, a lot of it. Envy was us and this person, Nick, who was playing with us, was Justin and I and Nick. And that stuff's more kind of like, you know, like noisy, like stuff, you know, like everything's a screech. But like with you, um, one thing I will say is everybody comes from a different background in this band. John is really into progressive stuff, not like Dream Theater, but like, you know, just like interesting kind of avant stuff, you know, sitting around with like Alice Coltrane all day and stuff. But and you know, Alex was in this band Kid Crash. Speaking of the screamo warlords of the early 2000s, that's when I first met Alex anyways, actually. So we've all known each other for a long time. But you know, I think where we come together, and they can disagree with me if they want later, but too bad I'm on here. But is that I think we all come together on Can. I think that's the band that we all come together on. You know, of like other bands, obviously there's lots of bands that we all love, and Alex listens to more metal than anybody now. Like he's all in on that like Icelandic sound, or not the Icelandic, the Finnish sound, death metal sound now. That's what he's
He's a
all in.
hooded menace guy.
Uh-huh.
He's got some hooded menace in the whip, just like
Yeah, exactly.
smashing.
It's smashing. And but I think Can is where I think we all kind of live when it comes to that, what you're talking about, that krautrocky thing. Because like we all just love like all those records with like Damo Suzuki and stuff like that. I mean, they're all
Mm-hmm.
great, but I mean I like Tago Mago. I know that's a popular opinion, but I still love it, stuff like that.
Oh,
And
dude, it's good.
yeah,
I mean, who cares? It's popular for a reason. It's just like,
yeah,
see,
yeah,
I mean, Can makes great records, right?
yeah, totally.
But I think that you sort of take out elements of that, but you spin it into a modernity of like post punk and other things, and it's cool. Like you have those builds in the sound,
Yeah,
but I feel like you were able to sort of transcend that into your own sort of zone, especially on You, and
yeah,
that's really where the band has sort of coalesced. It seems like member wise, and that's
yeah,
where I started to see Dream Decay. I saw at Silent Barn, and I was like, wow. I was like, this shit is fucking great, and it
thank you.
kind of put me into a different zone. I didn't really it didn't come off as it was necessarily described per se. But like
Yeah,
there's some post punk, there's this, but it's hard to qualify, which is great. I
yeah,
think that that's what makes it good. So when you guys are writing these songs, which sometimes when you see something that you really like,
yeah,
but I'm not necessarily sure how to arrive at it. I'm always like really fucking curious because I can't make music like that. I make music, but I don't make music like that. So how does a song come together for the group?
it kind of depends, sometimes it's just kind of like we'll just be kind of jamming. Like me and Justin will be working, like I'll work on a riff and then Justin will be playing something to it, or that kind of thing. Alex will bring stuff, John will bring stuff to practice. It really just like it's a why we take a long time, I think, to put out records, and why this, well, given COVID has also been a problem with us finishing this record, because we're being safe, and Justin's about to have a kid, so we're like not trying to be around him just in case we're hella asymptomatic or whatever. We're not we're just being safe.
Sure.
But one thing for us is like just putting the time in. I don't know, maybe like what's Neil Young say? He says like writing songs is practice. And it's like it's true. I mean, we'll sit around for days, and some days we'll just be like, that was really good, and then other days we're super hypercritical. We're also like, if it sounds like anything, I think we all just like are just like, nah, we can't do this one. Like it's like that's the other thing. It's like unless we really want it to be, we're like, oh, sick, that sounds like that. But it's like, but I think for the most part, we're all pretty hypercritical. We're not gonna like, and that's part of the songwriting process, for which I appreciate about all of us. This particular crew is that it's not going to be enough. You know what I mean? It's like we gotta keep digging and make it something interesting, because it's like, and it could just be like I'm fine with playing one note for a whole song, and just making it rhythmic and stuff. Like I really do. What I do appreciate about everybody in the group is that we do arrive with like, it's not because I want to have fun doing this or this or that. It's about what the actual product is, what the song's going to come out. And so that's kind of the process. Is like when we feel good about it, when we actually arrive there and we're like, oh, cool, and
Sure.
I think we all generally will give it a little bit of benefit of doubt if it's like best 2 out of 3 or something. It's like 2 out of 4 or whatever. We'll be like, okay, I could be swayed. Let's try this again. That kind of thing. So
Sure.
there's some diplomacy, but like every band, it's like you do all the crap, that you do. So
Yeah, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
the
Now,
sibling thing.
there's some diplomacy. It's just interesting. So it seems like it's more of a collective songwriting process. Like, there's not nobody who's really like, hey, I'm bringing song like this song, and we have most 80% of it written, right? Because
Yeah,
it's really interesting how certain bands are able to operate, like in this time where it's like, hey, I'm the songwriter, I'm sending a lot of stuff out, and other
yep,
bands, it's like we can't really get together as much. So that's a real big problem for us because that's how we
hmm,
create, right?
right,
So
right, yeah,
just different kind of levels of that. I want to actually switch
yeah,
gears for a minute too.
yeah,
So, at this point, right, it's like we talked about a lot about the band developing and stuff
yeah,
like that. And, it's a band that, like you said, it takes time to create this particular signature sound. When I listen to Dream Decay, I'm like, it's its own thing. I need the Dream Decay thing, which
right,
is
right,
really
right.
awesome to arrive at. And you have managed to do so over years of playing, but you can't when you're in a band like that, right? You
Hmm.
can't you're not like some like pop it out, tour cycle, pop it out,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
grind it out kind of thing. So you have to find other things to do with your time and with your life, right?
Totally.
So just like me,
Yeah.
you book shows and you do things on the other sides of the music community and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
tell me about the Vera project.
Yeah.
And then also tell me about how you got involved with doing that and then also making it, you know, your job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the Vera's 20th anniversary, so that's huge for us. I mean, we started in 2001, hopping from space to space. We've been at Seattle Center, which is like the Space Needle and all that stuff, the arena and all that stuff for 12 years, I think now. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but to get into talent buying or something, I just book shows. You know, I was never like, this is a profession I can get into. I was just really into booking punk shows. And for so many years, I booked for free at different warehouse spaces and be involved with DIY scene. I did this program called Fusion Cafe for a long time. That wasn't mine to start with, but I took it over for 10 years. And I also worked at this teen center that was like the precursor to the Vera project that did a lot of shows, and I mentored teens on how to do sound and like how to book a show and how to put out a zine. And we did a lot of just like pretty much punk 101 kind of stuff under the Boys and Girls Club's nose. You know what I mean? They didn't even like know we were doing, you know, it's like they were like, they kind of hated us, but they couldn't really do much about it till they did. But that was an old program from the 90s that I had the ability to, I was given the opportunity to be a part of. So with Vera, I mean, as a talent buyer, I mean, I booked shows and stuff like that. And I started my late 20s, I started realizing like, well, the amount of shows that I'm like really in love with is changing, but I do still like booking shows, you know, and it's like, and I don't know if that was your experience where you're just like, I gotta make a living, I'm getting older and and I think that's kind of us folks in the DIY world. I think we start realizing, well, if I want to stick around in this in some way, I think part of it is like, Jensen runs a record label, you know what I mean? Iron Lung Records, it's like, or XYZ person, so I started looking at my life and I was like, well, what have I been good at? It's like, well, I guess booking
Sure.
shows, and I started,
what can I contribute to
right,
like the overall thing, and also
right,
that allows me those times to do like your art as well, right? Like those couple of months a year that you might need to get out of town and do some things or whatever, or
totally,
that actually just jives with the rest of your kind of your life, right? And
right,
so I definitely can identify with that. And I have a degree in philosophy, so I clearly don't do that.
yeah,
And except maybe at the end of the bar at Saint Vitus every now and again, if you can catch me.
yeah,
But I was pretty much in the same capacity. I met Artie, who really honestly was one of my bigger influences because he was in Mind Over Matter
yeah,
and all of these amazing bands
yeah,
that I really looked up to and that Chris looked up to as well. And so,
yeah,
the band predated St. Vitus and me working there and then eventually becoming Artie and George's partner. But
yeah,
it was really one of these things where, I was just like bartending and
yeah,
fucking about and like doing my thing,
yeah,
and I just love music. I've always loved it. And I feel like I know how to pick them. I once wrote a song called Ace Rothstein. So,
uh-huh.
after Casino, De Niro just becomes a gambler and a bookie, and he's like, I always knew how to make money. I always knew how to pick 'em.
That's
That's
us.
pretty much that's us, dude.
We're De
We're that.
Niro.
That's who we are.
Yeah,
But that's totally it.
yeah,
And I always had a dream of sort of contributing
yeah,
in one way. There was no Instagram star when we were growing up. Most of the
right,
people who were really popular in the scene
hmm,
were doing things like you were in a band, you were a photographer, you
right,
were in the zine, you made clothes, you were part of a venue, like some of that stuff.
yeah,
And really, that's what still all those things still really apply,
yeah,
everyone. Like they all really apply. Those things haven't changed. If you want to make music awesome and
right,
have a cool community and make stuff. So I just found myself wanting to factor in, and as a kid who grew up on Long Island, I always looked at the city as like, Like
Yeah.
that's the spot. Like if I can do anything there,
Yeah.
I'm like you could make it there, you can make it anywhere,
Where a
kid, right?
kid, yeah, yeah.
So that sort of thing. But Vera Project, very differently than Saint Vitus, has a lot of like kind of activist sort of part of it
Yeah.
in a way. And while Vitus is, we try and be inclusive and cool, and we try and be, a community resource. We're here for music and for people here. We are very much like a business, right?
Right, right.
Like that is what we are,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's fine, right?
Yeah.
That's in a way. But Vera has a very sort of distinct part of their mission, which seems like kind of grew out of some of the things that this Punk 101 you were talking about. So let's talk about, I think it's pretty obvious how we're alike,
Yeah.
Saint Vitus and the Vera Project, but
Totally.
there's some differences there that I think are actually cool to talk about. So
Yeah.
tell me about that side of Vera Project and what you've been doing with it.
Well, community organizing's always been a part of the Vera. I mean, from the jump, because in Seattle in the 90s, you couldn't have all ages shows without having crazy ass insurance. There was this thing called the Teen Dance Ordinance, which was like the Footloose law, done through regressive politics. It wasn't always so progressive in Seattle necessarily in city council. It's way better now. We still got a lot to go. But but it was really, it came out of folks like Kate Becker and James Keblis and Shannon Stewart. I want to name those three. They're the founders. Being like really hyper vigilant about making sure that all ages sober space shows could happen in the city, that there was a safe place for folks to go, and especially young folks, and then folks of all ages to go and to like see shows. And, it always had sort of that kind of like organizer lean and everything. And it was always about, I feel like it's always been about making a better world, right? That's like the big thing is like, we can do that through music. And so I'm excited to hear what you say about Vitus, because though it's like, yeah, the bottom line is you live in an expensive city where you got to make money. You got to make money for everybody to live and to work and for bands to get through and stuff. But it is really good to hear that kind of inclusivity talk, because it's a real thing. You know what I mean? It's a real thing to think about even after COVID. It's like, what is our values in inclusivity in the music industry, as a whole? And that's something that we'll continue to explore at Vera, where we trying to teach young folks how to get into production and stuff, and trying to make a better world that is more inclusive. You know what I mean? That does involve more folks from different communities, including, trans and queer communities, BIPOC communities and everything, who maybe don't ever feel like they could be the sound engineer at XYZ venue or this big festival or whatever, and I think our goal is to continue just to like uplift and meet the needs of the community at the time. For us in Seattle, that needs of the community is like digital equity, focus on inclusivity, continued focus on inclusivity. But the holes have been punched, after we like took a step back from the music industry and everything, and like realizing like we have a lot to work on. We have a lot that is to work on, and we're not talking about just what we already knew, which was a lot of like like a lot of the issues in sexual assault with folks and stuff like that, and things and predatory behavior that we're seeing with like certain record labels. I won't name them offline, but in the last year. But it's like what we're seeing now, and I just think that we can all do it too, and we can all commit to it too. And I'm hoping that the Vera can be a part of that. Also, a trendsetter in that. We were the first ones to do all gendered bathrooms in the city for venues. That was a big thing. That was a no-brainer. That our membership, because our membership has a big voice in it, right? This members are like just people that have committed a certain amount of time at the Vera, and that voice is really important. That collective, that community voice is really important. And I just feel like, it's something I've been reflecting on in just my time booking shows and being a part of things and touring and stuff like that. It's like, gosh, there's so many people that I know want to be a part of this, and I want to make sure that other people feel happy as I have when I was younger. You know what I mean? And like make sure
that they can find what you found, pretty much, right? Like
totally.
in there. in their, you know, kind of calling. And what's interesting
Yeah.
is, I don't know about you, but like with me, like it seems like we both did like kind of stumbled into it.
Totally.
And we didn't really have, I didn't have any mentorship of any kind.
Same.
Like I just wanted to make cool shit and do fucked up weird stuff. Like
Same.
I you know, like to be real honest, and I wanted to shake shit up.
Totally.
You know, and
Same.
I wanted to create awesome experiences and do that. And, you know, like thinking back more so, you know, the aim of Saint Vitus and what it is really, in a way, rooted in just, we want to reflect the city, its sort of want and need for this space for punk, hardcore, and metal and stuff.
Totally.
Because there's a lot of space in New York and a lot of space that, you know, a lot of other like music's playing, and I go to all of them. I mean, fuck, I make industrial techno music and stuff. Like I go all over the place. The kid that went to all those weird shows is now just a man who goes to weirder shows. Like, it just continues, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's really cool. But, you know, in that we try to make this thing, you know, and George and Artie and stuff, and build, you know, and to build this thing. But I think with this sort of slowdown, you have to think a little bit about, you know, what it's all for exactly.
Totally.
And, you know, we try and listen to our patrons, you try and listen to people and just really like take in that feedback and reapply that into this space.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that's cool is that people are really thinking about where their money is necessarily going in these times, what it's trying to support, and even like, you know, what bands are popular and cool, and who are you supporting in those ways? Because maybe unlike, I take a lot of chances booking things more than maybe certain people out there, or who might not necessarily look at aesthetics and are only focused on the bottom line. Mm-hmm, but at the same time, everyone who's a fan of a band can vote with their dollars. If you all show up to their show, it makes my job really fucking easy to go make and book that band. Like if you enjoy this, if you like love Dream Decay, show up, buy the fucking t-shirt, hang out, buy a drink, chill. Then we know what to do. Like fans hold in their hands so much of the power balance too. It's like, even for somebody like me who doesn't have like what you guys have as far as like this sort of very like membership based, almost co-op-y sort of feel, right?
Totally. Yeah.
We still have the vote with your dollar
totally.
Kind of thing
Totally.
At Vitus, and you can vote with your dollar. I'll tell you that. But we can do it and like, and then, you know, we can use that through the space. So I think that, you know, there's been a lot of interesting movement for sure. And for us, I think it's to learn from people like yourself and what Vera does, and then bring that into maybe some of our fold, and also kind of understand where we all can sort of be in this ecosystem.
Exactly.
And also, you know, do cool things. And like the projects and the missions are a bit different, but we inhabit the same space. We are independent. We are, you know, trying to put on music that otherwise would probably be frowned upon or just thrown off to the side.
Exactly.
In really now expensive, you know, major market cities, right? And that shit's hard. Tell the people how hard it is in Seattle.
Exactly. It is extremely hard to live in Seattle at this point. And that's the other thing that has been our mission. That equity thing has been like, not every kid's going to be able to come to Seattle Center. So how, we've been talking about this for years, but like, just like, how do we go to them? You know, how do we go to a community space and be like, what do you want to see? Can we help you book shows? What bands do you want to see? Like, what artists are in your communities that you want to amplify and stuff like that? And then that's been another goal of ours. We coined it Vera on your block a while ago, but it was like stuff like that is just so, I feel like it's just so much a part of it. And I agree with you. Like, people do vote with their dollar, you know what I mean? And it's like what they put their money into and everything. And so we listen to patrons too, because it's like, not only our membership are patrons. I'm a patron to shows too. What do I want to see at a show? You know, and as I've gotten older, it doesn't matter as much what an old guy like me, what I, you know, like, what am I going to say, something crazy or something? But I'm just like, you know, it's like,
dude, when's Crisscross playing? Let's get this shit going. Come on.
exactly. But it was like, but but it is important to hear what people have to say at all shows. And like, so I appreciate that y'all are thinking about what that looks like as an independent venue, because that really is the only way we're going to survive. You know what I mean? If we take care of each other and that we like make sure that the folks are actually having a good time. It's like it's depressing to see how many coalitions and like initiatives we have to build just so people can feel like they won't get sexually assaulted at a place. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I appreciate all of the work that people are doing, but I'm like, come on, it's time. It's time to like, it is time for us to move forward in this and to really think about everybody that's going to be at that show that night and like what's going to happen to them. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that does come on us, and we have to hear that because those patrons are the people starting coalitions and stuff. And I think it's just really important that we move forward. And I love the conversations that people are having, about building,
Yeah, even
building up a better music scene, industry, whatever that might be,
I just even think that people like us talking to one another
Yeah.
is just a powerful thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of people, now independent venues have been sort of, because we're so fucked, sort of thrust into this national conversation.
Totally.
And I think it's also because people are missing, right? Like
Yeah.
they're missing what we do and stuff. So, it's easy to take things for granted.
Totally.
Me as well, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Same.
it's easy to take things for granted. And then obviously with COVID and this situation and everything, it's put a lot of stark light on a lot of things. And you see a lot of contrast in our society and in art and equity in art and what that means. That's definitely something, that this is sort of shown. So we're all really fucked up right now, but then it gave everyone like, it's like, oh, why don't we talk to one another? All of a sudden in like 4 weeks, there's a National Independent Venue Association.
Totally.
Where the fuck was this in like normal times, right? And
Right.
maybe that's those sorts of things in communication, I think are very powerful, because a lot of the membership in that is also, they're like the neighborhood place. They're the ones, that, you could talk to me.
Yeah,
you could talk to George, you could talk to Artie, like, who we are. Like, we're not like impossible to get at. We're not some board of directors somewhere taking whatever money from whomever. Like, we're sort of a different entity. So it's approachable, and we're in the community, right? So it's an interesting thing, and obviously everyone's going to approach it a little bit different. Like I said, we have different values in certain ways, but also very common in a lot of ways. And just really more what I mean by values, maybe it's more like how the projects manifest themselves in that sort of regard. So I think all of that is super interesting. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you something. So Saint Vitus is 10 this year. So we're 10 this month in April. So we've been around for a while, and you all are 20. How does it feel? It's really odd, kind of like not being able to sort of do the damn thing on such a wild year, huh?
Yeah.
How has that sort of felt for you to kind of, sort of be out of you're not playing in the band.
Yep. Yeah.
You're not booking shows, right? That's your job and stuff. I think for people like me and you, maybe other people don't see it as much, but like our whole lives have sort of been, everything has sort of been, put way
on hold,
down, right?
Totally.
And in a way, for at least I feel like I've been, I'm like, oh man, I'm off the hamster wheel, because we book like hundreds and hundreds of bands a year.
I don't even think
like,
about that.
Don't fucking know. I'm a fucking warrior. I book so many bands.
Same.
And then we're playing too, like I'm playing shows as Confines, or I'm sitting in some tin can rolling down the street with primitive weapons, like trying to book a show, and I'm like, oh my God, my life. But now, we don't have it, right? Like we don't have it. So how has it been sort of gaining more of this perspective and not being able to do this thing on two fronts? What has it given to you, and what has it sort of taken away?
The only thing I could say it takes to me is that that community has become digital, which we've done our best to like keep it. I call people a lot, to the point where I think they don't call me back, because they're like, oh, this guy again, he's gonna call me, ask about my life. But as far as the Vera's project is concerned, it's focused on all in organizing, right? Supporting DIY scenes. We did a ton of benefit, like a ton of like fundraising for DIY and cultural spaces, especially some of the Black-led cultural spaces around here too, just to make sure everybody can keep going, and doing a bunch of public health stuff. So that for me has been nice because my background is social work. I worked in homeless services for 8 years or something, and then a lot of other type of youth services and stuff like that. Pretty classic hardcore kid thing, get into to frontline work like that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, as much as I miss everything, and I'm literally just playing my drum sets over here with my headphones, playing to stuff and just acting like I'm like, well, I got to do something, and like recording when I can, and I'm very fortunate to have this little shed that I have at home, but I'm just counting my blessings. It's like I continue. I'm like, I walk away, and I don't know if you feel this too, but you walk away from booking so much and how much internal stress that comes from that about what show's going to do good and what show's going to do bad, and like, are you going to have a job, or are you going to do this? Like you start thinking, like, you know what I mean? It's like you start thinking about all these trends, and you're like, okay, well, this is really popular, so we should probably book this. But I guess I've just continued to count my blessings, and I've said that out loud because there's a lot of folks, and including people in my family, my partner's family, that have passed from COVID, a few. And so it's like, I have to keep putting into perspective, things will come back and they'll be fantastic when they do, because we'll be great to be able to hug each other again without getting COVID. And then, but also just counting my blessings, like I'm healthy, I have a place right now. And so what can I do for other people right now in this moment? And then what can I do when we get back to booking shows that'll be better for everybody, more accessible? Like even thinking about streaming as not people don't really like streaming, but I gotta say, like, there's a lot of folks with immunocompromised and stuff like that would love to still see a show, like a live show. So I'm like, can we offer this? Can we offer this? I don't know if that answers that.
I think that's totally, no, I think it does. I think perfectly, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I mean, the response to wanting to keep Saint Vitus open and the Kickstarter campaign and all this shit, it's mind blowing. Like nobody has to do any of that for us ever. Like it was absolutely insane. And so
same.
It does give you the emotional boost is incredible, and it makes me want to keep going, and it makes all of us want to keep going, because we matter in people's lives in a way, and it's super cool even when people post up stuff and we would post them on Instagram like, 2 years ago I went to this amazing show, or 5 years ago I did this, and it was here, and or they're hey man, I'm rocking this t-shirt and I'm like, or this hat and I'm like supporting Vitus or something. That shit makes me crazy in the best way. I'm just like mind blown. Some motherfucker in London's like, doing that. It's incredible.
Totally.
And in a way that kind of shows you the effect, and it makes me want to come back, but also to your effect, be grateful for the 10 years of stuff that we've done and understand it, but also have a moment to process it and hopefully come back with something even better. I'm sitting here and I want, for the people watching, I'm sitting here every day thinking about that. And that's a really something completely unique. The fact that we're lucky enough that we were going to see this thing through, which is fucking nuts. Especially in a place like New York. But two, that we're sitting here thinking about those aspects, and we want to do that on a multitude of levels.
Totally.
Through a multitude of things. So it's a really cool thing. And then, you know what? I want to fucking play a show too, like as a musician in me is like, I dream of doing karaoke. Like I dream of anything.
Right.
Like, oh my God.
We were
what's going on?
We were on tour when shit was going down. We ended our tour in Atlanta when we did Uniform Body and Frogwa. Like we were supposed to come to New York. And
man.
And it was like we just drove back, but I'm just I will love to play a show. You know what I mean? I will just be like, I will really love just even playing with my friends and just doing that whole thing, and it'll be nice. not, and I will always remind myself just to count my blessings. Like, don't do it unless people can be safe. You know what I mean? So that's always going to be my
Sure.
thing. I'm just going to be like, also like take a moment for the people that passed during this pandemic and be like, and be really appreciative, not necessarily of like any sacrifice, because there's no sacrifice. It's just unfortunate, and it's like, and sad. And it's like, but just like give a moment for folks and be like, when we play our first shows, we're like, we're just like, hey, just give a moment to the people that are not here now, and
Yeah.
and the people that wanted to be
The
here and stuff.
places, the people,
The places, the people,
everything else.
yeah, everybody that had to
There's a lot.
totally people that had to change their whole lives, it's like, and just give a moment where I hope that we can do that at our first shows, where we can just like a moment of silence for the people that can't be with us now. You know what I mean? And just, and again, count our blessings and just be like, okay, let's go. Fuck this shit up.
Yeah, totally. Yo, what's up? We're Madball.
Yeah, tear the shit apart.
Set it off. Yeah, for sure. 120%. I feel the same way about that stuff, and I think that your thought about being grateful and present and stuff, that's just good life advice, and being able to reflect in our society is at a premium. So now we can do that, and we can move forward with, I think intention is sort of maybe the theme of today's episode, but it's like with that intention and stuff like that. So to dive back into the band quickly too, because I kind of want to touch on that, because you said that you were writing and things of that nature. In 2019, been on Iron Lung Records, which is, imagine, like you said, hometown heroes, right?
Dream come
hometown
true.
heroes. Like, but then the last thing that you did as a band was put out 2 songs on Sub Pop, right? Which is one of their singles collections, which is, I mean, Chef's Kiss, legendary too, right? So, and those are 2 really fucking good songs. You guys are extra hypercritical on those.
Thank you.
So, I think that we just laid out the intention and the feeling about what we want to do with shows, but just give me a little bit about Dream Decay and what you're hoping for with Dream Decay, as we sort of, we're starting to see some cracks in the facade, some light at the end of the tunnel there.
Yes. Well, we want to finish the record, and I won't name names who's done more guitar parts than the other person in the band, who's recorded their shots fired. But we are, I know, we're about halfway through, maybe 3/4 through. So we luckily somehow did record all the drum parts and bass parts before we left for that trip with the body uniform, so we're when we get back, I mean, a lot of life changes for folks. Justin's having a kid and everything, and obviously Justin's gonna have to teach Gus how to play so that he can join the band in the reunion version, you know what I mean, in 20 years. But I think our intention is probably to like just hit the ground running again in 2022, try to get this record out. I hear the plants are crazy now, so for records we're gonna see who wants to do it. But but that's kind of the plan, is to kind of go back to trying to tour again and stuff like that. But this is a good time, I mean, Justin's just about to have a kid, and it's like that's a full-time, double-time job, and he can't just be like rocking on the road while Hillary's at home, just being like, cool.
Sure.
So cool. I know. And so
you're on your own, kid. Dad's gotta rock.
Yeah, we gotta rock. It's like CCR. But yeah, I think our plan is to start working on more stuff after this. I mean, we're on to the next generally, even when we put out the record. There's one thing that's funny about our band is I'm the one who's always has to be like, we have to play a song off this record, like 2 songs off this record a show. They're like, why don't we just, and everybody else like, why don't we just play new stuff? I was like, guys, no one's going to buy the record if they don't know what the hell it sounds like. So I'm the business guy. The band, everybody's got their roles, Justin does killer art and concept and stuff. And, John's got his like vibe with like, what he likes to do with sounds, and Alex makes us. I always say Alex makes us sound good, because science amps are very nice sounding amps. So he makes sure that our tone is right.
Yeah,
He makes
man.
a big
Good
stink
tone.
about it. He makes a big stink.
Good.
He's like, this sounds like shit.
Good. I like that guy. I'm
Anyways,
not making a big stink about it. Everyone needs one.
yeah.
But dude, Jason, this has been amazing, man.
Thank you so
I
much
just
for
want to
having
thank
me.
you for coming on the show. It was really cool to connect in this way.
Yeah,
Obviously, we have some pretty analogous
I know.
lives, and I appreciate the conversation not only on the Dream Decay side, but the Vera Project side. And it's
Yeah,
just cool to hear from a contemporary who I truly respect and
thank
think is
you.
doing a lot of cool stuff. So
Thank you.
thanks for joining us. Age of Quarantine, we're out of here. Check out Jason's bands, check out the Vera Project, and when we can all travel, make sure to stop it when you're in Seattle, because I know I will. All
Hell
right?
yeah. And I'll see you in New York. Bye.
Yeah.